Hi everyone, it's Shelby. I have a video today to show you how I did the background for the card I put on Outside the Boxes blog today, Thursday, August 6th. I got the idea from a class I took with Tammy Tutoro using distress paints and distress spray stain. And if you ever get a chance to take a class from Tammy, I highly recommend it. She's an awesome instructor with some fabulous background techniques. So I'm going to show you today one that I used, or that I learned in her class and used on today's card. So what you need, or what I use today, is I use two different distress paints. This is the Picket Fence and this is Spun Sugar. So you want to use Picket Fence and then any other color that you might desire. And you will also need a spray stain. And I chose Twisted Citron, even though a lot of the other greens will do well. I particularly like Mowed Lawn as well. So don't feel like you have to use the exact colors that I used today. So in step one, what you want to do is you want to get that ink flowing. You just dab it out. If you've not used the daubers, you just push and squeeze to get the paint flowing. You want to take quick strokes up and down. You don't need to cover the entire surface of the cardstock. And the cardstock I'm using today is Basil Marshmallow, my favorite cardstock to work with when I'm using some mixed mediums. So then the next step that you do is that you want to heat set this and dry all of the paint. What you don't want to do is to make the paint very heavy. You want thin layers of paint. You only need to heat set it until that paint is dried. And if you notice when I was going up and down, it was quick swipes up and down. And I wasn't squeezing the tube of paint very hard at all. So that was the first layer of white paint. Then I'm going to repeat that exact same process. And again, I'm not worried about did I hit, am I covering all the areas. And in fact, with this technique, you don't want to cover the entire card base. So that was my second layer of white Picket Fence, and I'm going to dry it, heat set it with the gun. If you get bubbles in your paint, that's okay. It just creates another fun looking texture. And the heavier paint that you put down, or the more paint that you put down, the longer that it will take to dry with the heat gun. Of course, I guess you could let it air dry, but then you'd be here working on this project a couple days later, which is unnecessary. And the heat gun that I'm using is the Milwaukee 1400, and I have to say I've gone through numerous heat guns that have not stood up to time, but this one has so far been wonderful and I love it. So let me put this up to the camera and hopefully you can see a little bit of the paint shining in the light. So that was 2 coats of the Distress paint in Picket White. Now I'm going to come in with the Spun Sugar, which is a very pale pink. Again, I'm going to make sure that the dauber has good paint flow. I'm going to follow the exact same method that I did with the white Picket Fence. And this will show a little bit more of how light those strokes were that I was taking. They weren't even, they were pretty random, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So I'm going to now dry this. So what you do is that you dry the paint in between each layer that you're laying down. Let's hold this up to the camera so maybe you can see it a little bit while it's drying. It doesn't take too long to dry at all. So now that I have my 3 layers of paint down, 2 of the Picket White and then 1 of the Spun Sugar, I'm going to go ahead and pull my spray stain out. And this is again Twisted Citron, the Mowed Lawn or peeled paint work beautifully as well. And I'm going to cover, be pretty generous with this paint, or not the paint, but with the spray stain. I'm going to let it sit on there for a little bit, let it run up and down to make sure it's covering everything. And then I'm going to let it just sit there for a few more moments to soak into the paper. Let's put that on camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. Wouldn't that be most helpful? Then I have a handy dandy cheap paper towel, and I'm going to wipe off the excess of the spray stain. So you're kind of just wiping off and buffing in. If you wanted to buff in some extra color, you can always pick it up from the mat and buff it in. So here's what it looks like with the Twisted Citron. You can let it air dry, or you can go ahead and heat set and dry this as well. So this is what the final looks like with the Twisted Citron color. Let me grab some Mowed Lawn and I will spray over top of that because it's a little bit darker in color, and I'll show you the difference in the colors. Okay, now I'm back after a short little hiatus trying to find my Mowed Lawn Distress Spray Stain. So I did first the Twisted Citron. And since Mowed Lawn is a little bit darker, or quite a bit darker in color than the Twisted Citron, it'll pretty much cover up that color. Again, I sprayed it all over. Just going to let it run and kind of sit on the paper for a little bit to make sure it's soaked in. And then I'm going to wipe off the excess stain. Wipe this mat up. And there you have the Mowed Lawn, which is the exact colors I used on the card on the blog today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment either on the YouTube channel or on the outside the blog box. Thanks for visiting today and hope you have a wonderful day.